Hey guys, welcome to the recap of round 8 at Oskemen Open. Today I played prodigy from Kazakhstan, Alisher Abdesattar, who was formerly the second place in the World Championship under 10, I think, and also in Asian Championships. A very strong junior player. He's currently just 12 years old and he has the international CM title. Unlike myself, I have just a national CM title. That's why I don't have this badge on chess.com, and he does. So he's again higher rated than me because in this tournament I'm lower rated than the overwhelming majority of participants, but that's okay. But this game made me suspect that either I suck at chess or child prodigies are too good. So let's dive into this. So we have the French defense, and I spent some time preparing for this opponent. I found his games online and in classical, and I've learned that he plays this setup: knight c3 against the French, and then e5, f4. This is called the classical setup. It's very popular against the French defense, and I decided to play this bishop e7 line. I sometimes play it. There are also other lines possible, like knight c6 is probably more popular, but bishop e7, there are some subtleties in the opening, but you don't need to know them unless you are a French player. Bishop e7 is a semi-waiting move, and here again most people play knight c6, but I here played castles first, and after queen d2, again not playing knight c6 but b6. There are some subtleties here. If black goes long, if white goes long, black might launch a queenside attack. If white goes short, then there are different plans. So he goes bishop e2, and I go knight c6, he castles, and here bishop b7, and knight d1. I had this position in my file, and I revised the file with the lines for the opening this morning. I was not sure if he goes for knight d1 and this bishop e2 plan. There are other plans in this position, but he chose this one, and I remembered that here I should take, because the idea of why does white reroute the knight black? The idea is to go c3 and strengthen this pawn chain, and this pawn chain will be beautiful. So imagine I just go, for example, rook c8, c3, and white has this connect 4, very strong center, and white is significantly better. This is why I have to take before white is able to go c3. And here we take, and here in my opening files I had the move knight b8. It's not the only move in this position, but I had this move, and this is where my opening prep ended. You might say, why does the knight go backwards? What's the idea? But the idea is that knight here is not doing anything too special. It might go to c5, but it's not the best square for the knight. And instead, it is useful to put the knight on b8, because from there, and my opening file said that I have the idea of bishop a6, trading the light squared bishop, because in the French defense, the light squared bishop of black is generally considered bad, and it needs to be traded for the good light squared bishop of white, because if white goes bishop d3, this is a very annoying attacking piece, and here my bishop is looking into thin air, and it's best to trade it, because my pawns are on light squares mostly. So my file here said bishop a6, and then knight c6. Apparently, it's not that simple. So my file, in principle, is correct, but it depends on the move. So my opponent here went knight e3, and I immediately went bishop a6, because I thought I'll trade the light squared bishop and then I'll go knight c6. But it's already a mistake, and white is already significantly better, +1. So turns out here I had to go knight c6 first, and then maybe one of the lines is like this: c3, and I can take, and then go a5, and only then go bishop a6. I somehow didn't get too deep in the position, didn't realize that. I was too overconfident in my files, and I went bishop a6, and it's already a very unpleasant position for white, for black, because he goes f5. I thought that it's all right, I'll trade. Here, trading is actually one of the best moves. It's the best move according to the engine, but I'm already significantly worse. During the game, a couple moves later, I realized that I'm very much worse. And I thought probably bishop takes e2 is a decisive mistake. But it's not a decisive mistake. It's actually the best move in the position. Because otherwise, what should I do? He's threatening f6. I cannot allow f6. f6 will kill me. It will be a devastating attack. So I have to take. And he takes with a knight, of course, putting more pressure. And here, the best move in the position is again to take. Because I cannot even develop this knight. So this knight should stay guarding this bishop. And without this knight, I cannot defend the position. For example, if I go bishop g5, trying to attack the queen, he just goes bishop e3, and then his queen will still infiltrate, and he will inflict devastating consequences on me. So it turns out that here bishop takes e2, what I did was perfectly fine. It's just the problem is that I'm already much worse. Here I have to take, otherwise he goes f6, and I'm cooked. So I take. And I realized that this must be a great position for him, because a knight on f5, as Garry Kasparov famously said, a knight on e5 is worth more than a queen. Maybe not more than a queen, but definitely worth a lot. And my knight on b8 is still not participating. The result of me playing this slow maneuvering game is that my knight is not back in the game. If my knight were here, protecting the g7 square, maybe it would be an equal position, but no. It's a bad position for me. And already here I make a decisive mistake. I calculated many variations here. I calculated that if I go bishop g5, he just goes h4, and I'm cooked. It's not even the best move. He can even go e6. It's even better. Wow, I didn't consider this. I also calculated knight c6. This is what I wanted to go for initially. And here, the problem is that he has queen g4. Threatening mate. I have to go g6, and then I saw e6, and the threat is if I do nothing. For example, if I take on e6, knight h6 is a checkmate, because this bishop and this knight and this rook restrict the king, so the king has no squares to go to. So e6 is a very strong move, opening up this file for the bishop, and if I take, he takes with check. And if I take here, knight h6 is a fork, winning material, destroying me. If I take with a king, of course, also there will be some discovered checks, and I'm dead. And if I go king h8, then, well, probably this is good enough. And then taking on d4, and yeah, I'm losing. I will be checkmated because my king has no squares. The only move I have is to block with the queen, and he'll just take, and this is a checkmate. So I solved this, and I decided that in this position, knight c6 is bad. I saw also the best move against e6 here, which is f6. The computer agrees. So this is what I actually should have gone for. But I really disliked this position. I thought that I'm not going to survive this. This is not good. And the computer agrees. The computer says it's plus 1.3 already, so very big advantage for white, and white will probably checkmate me sooner rather than later. But still, this would have been the best I could have gotten. So this just goes to show how fatal my bishop a6 was. So here, just one move, bishop a6, and I'm completely cooked. Before, it was just a theoretical position, so I don't know. I'm devastated. So again, okay, I do what I can. I take on f5, and here I calculate that knight c6 is bad. All other moves are bad, so I go bishop c5. And this is a fatal mistake, because this leads to even worse consequences for me. He takes. I have to take back, of course. And here I calculated that he probably will go queen g4. And I thought that, yes, the position is bad, but at least I'm not losing immediately. Turns out that it's also pretty much losing. But he finds an even better resource, in my opinion. He goes e6, and I didn't see that move from afar. Well, I was already unhappy about my position. I was mentally having this self-talk with myself. Why did I get such a horrible position after just like 15 moves in the opening? I suck at chess and stuff like this. So e6 came as a surprise, but already even without e6, white can do anything here. White can just complete development with rook e1 and then go e6 or queen g4 or rook f3, rook g3, anything wins here. This is how good white's position is. But e6 is the most forcing line. I realize that if I take, he'll take with check. I go back and he has knight d6. And his idea is knight f7, forking me, and I will have to give up at least the rook for a knight, and the position will still be horrible for me. So yeah, I realized that. So I did not take on e6. And what else can I do? He's threatening e7, which will be a fork, and will lose my rook. So I have to do something. If I go rook e8, this will kill me. And this is a, well, knight h6, knight e7. Yeah, knight e7 is a checkmate. They discover check, and the king has no moves because all the squares are taken by white's pieces. Very beautiful. So of course, rook 8 here doesn't work because e takes f7. F6, then e7 doesn't work. So I have to do something. I have to avoid this e7 fork. So I came up with queen f6. This is the best move according to the engine, but it's not helping. Anyway, the position is lost in many ways. But my opponent here continued playing like a genius. He played this game at 95% accuracy. No mistakes and not even one inaccuracy. All his moves were either top engine line or second engine line. Because, well, first of all, he's a good player, very good, talented junior, and second of all, his position just plays itself. I would have loved to have such a position out of the opening with white. Yeah, but unfortunately, he's playing with the white pieces here. And many moves win here, but he finds, again, the best forcing continuation. So, of course, he can take here, and this is what I was hoping for, because, of course, I don't take back. If I take back, there are some problems like knight h6 check, for example. And my queen is hanging. If I take by pawn, my queen will get lost. And if I take by queen, queen e8 will be a checkmate like this. So if he takes on f7, of course, I cannot take back. With a king, of course, knight d6 will come, so also bad. But I had in mind king h8, and at least I'm down one pawn, and I'm getting brutally attacked. I'll probably lose some more material, but it's not losing immediately. If he goes queen a8, for example, I have queen takes f7, and I take this pawn. If he goes queen e7, again, I can take on f7. Yes, this is still losing, but not that horrible. So e takes f7 is not the best move. He went e7, which is stronger. Now my rook is hanging. If I go to c8, then he will queen. So I have just one move, rook e8. And here, he goes queen f3, another great move. Now he has a threat. For example, if I do nothing, like a6, he goes knight h6 check. And if I take here, he wins my queen. And if I take by queen, he takes here. And he wins, because he takes the rook and mates me. And the same will happen if I go knight c6, which is the move for that. Would be the most logical, because knight h6, if I take, he takes on f7, and then he can checkmate me in two ways. He can take the rook with check and then go rook f8, or he can just go queen f8 and make a queen or even a rook for the memes. And then this is a checkmate, so the king cannot escape. So this is the problem. Knight h6 is coming. Of course, I can go king h8, but then he'll take yet another pawn, and he can even trade here and win that endgame, because not only am I down material, I'm also hopelessly lost because of the piece activity of my opponent and weakness of my king. So this was his idea, knight h6, and I want to prevent it somehow, so I go knight d7, controlling the f8 square. So if he does the same thing here, I can take. And once he takes, there's no longer queen f8, because my rook, my knight, and the other rook are all controlling the square, and there is no checkmate. So at least I'm not getting checkmated like this, but I'm still lost. Any move wins here. Rook a to e1, for example, continuing to pile the pressure, but he chooses again a more forcing variation. He just picks up the pawn. Now my knight is hanging, and unfortunately, I don't have much that I can do. For example, if I go knight b6, he can just take yet another pawn, or he can drop back, for example, to e4 or f3, and then add more pieces into the attack. And yeah, it's not a happy position to be in. So I go queen e7, e6, trying to trade the queens. If he takes here, I take, and suddenly I'm back in the game because his knight is hanging, has to go back, and then I'll take the pawn, and suddenly, yeah, white is still better, but we have equal material, and I've taken this annoying pawn. Of course, he is not obliged to take on e6, and he doesn't. Like practically anything wins here, but he goes rook d1 again. One of the top engine choices. He's putting more pressure on d7. Of course, if I take, he takes, and I will win some more material. I will have to win to move the knight, and he takes another pawn. Or even maybe rook f5 is even better, yeah. Because even if I go g6, he'll just drop back with his knight, or even go knight h6 check and take this pawn. So I cannot win the e7 pawn. So, of course, this is hopeless if I trade the queens. I try to do something. I go knight f6. And here, again, I somehow even missed his response. Even though he doesn't have to do anything here, he will just win in any way possible. Queen f3, dropping back, for example, wins just fine. Or queen takes c5, taking another pawn. He's 2 pawns up, dominating, wins just fine. I thought he'll do something like that, queen c5, and I wanted to go rook c8, at least put some pressure, try to pretend I have some counterplay. But it turns out that I missed even his last resource. This is why I said that today I thought that I suck at chess. This is a very simple combination, a very beautiful, brutal, effective, and of course any good player should see it within seconds, but somehow I just missed it. And then when he did it, I realized that, yeah, even this wins for him. Queen takes a8, sacrificing the queen. The problem is that, of course, I have to take, but then rook d8 comes. And if I take, he takes and makes a queen, and this is just hopeless. I'm down a rook in this position, so of course I don't take. I try to block. Knight e8 is the only move, but then he takes my rook, and now he has 2 rooks for a queen, and probably under other circumstances I could have played on, but not here, because my knight is hanging. I have to defend it somehow. I have queen c6 is the only move, but he just takes and goes rook d1. Of course I solved this, but what else could I have done? I had nothing else, and here I resigned because rook d8 is coming and it's unstoppable, and I will have to give up my queen for maybe even not the rook, maybe for a pawn, because if I go f6, he has still this move, and if I have this, then he has knight d6 check. So I will not even take the rook. I will just have no rook, and he will have a rook, which is of course better than none. So I lose this game in such a brutal fashion that it's painful. It's painful. Of course, kudos to my opponent for giving me this lesson and playing so well. I don't have anyone to blame but myself, but maybe I can come back in the last 2 rounds. Still, I think have gained some rating points because I scored 2 points out of 8, but all those 8 opponents were much higher rated than me. So yeah, this one is one of the lowest rated opponents, by the way, in the tournament. But he is very strong and underrated, obviously, as many Kazakhstani juniors are. So let's see what happens next. Please write a comment if you like this content by me, and if you're not tired of seeing me lose. And see you in the next one. Bye bye.